My name is Mike Sailors, and I am an assistant professor of practice here at the Butler School, and I teach in the Jazz Studies Division.
Well, welcome to the podcast. Thanks
hmm
for stopping by. It's wonderful. It's so cool to have you here. I know you've been
hmm
doing a lot of neat stuff. You just came out with a new album.
I did.
So let's dive right into that. Tell me about this new album you just recorded.
Sure. So it's a result of a collaboration with another gentleman here in town named Elias Hoslinger, who is actually alumni from the Butler School. He is a wonderful musician, wonderful tenor saxophonist, has many records under his belt that have all done really well. And I've been playing in his band here in Austin for going on 3 years. And just got to the point with our concerts that we were doing that this is sort of the natural kind of trajectory of a band like that, is to go in the studio and document it. And so we went in the studio back in February. Well, we had 3 recording sessions, 2 in February and then one at the end of March. And they turned out really well. And so we decided just to sort of go all in and pay for all the promotion and all the radio play and stuff. And so it's been doing really good. So we're really proud of how it sounds, and we're proud of the band sound that we were able to capture on this. I mean, this band is, like I said, has been a thing for 3 years, and so we have a very kind of cohesive sound, and we're all kind of on the same page of how we like the music to sound.
Yeah, yeah. So when I think of jazz, there's so much of improv,
hmm
right? As opposed to classical music, where like
hmm
every note is thought out. How
hmm
does that translate to like the recording studio?
Well, 9 of the 10 songs are our own original compositions, and I'm a composer and arranger myself. So I take great care with how the melodies are and the song forms and strong song structures. With the improvisations, that is sort of the main focus of a jazz record, or the quality of and the content of the jazz improvisations. And so, you know, when you're in the studio, you're really trying to capture the best solos, which not it doesn't mean just the best executed, but the ones that have the most emotional content to the song, where the band is sounding the best. And so, generally speaking, we took 3 takes of everything. And then we either chose one of those 3 takes, or we went back and then we did another take until we found one we like. So when you're judging your own improvisations, you're judging them on a couple different parameters, how you think you played, but also how the band played behind you. There were some takes that I had great solos, it's sometimes better than the solos that made the record, but maybe the band didn't play as well behind me, or they were anticipating me doing something else that I did. And so we had to take the one that the band sounded the best on. So when you're making a jazz record, you really have to evaluate the entire band performance, not just your own solo. So I guess that's probably the biggest difference. You're trying to judge the music on not just the execution of it, but the overall sort of effect that the track would have.
When you play a track, is it just kind of like the whole band feels like that was it? And is it actually it when you go back and listen to it, or it's like, oh, maybe that wasn't it? Like, how much is that in the moment feeling
Mhm.
accurate when you listen to it played back?
I think of most of the takes when you're making a jazz record, even after you get done with the take, when you're going into the booth to listen to it, most people will know when that was the take you're going to take. It's funny. I got interviewed by someone at the Daily Texan, and they asked me this exact question. And a lot of it is just, it when you hear it, and the track has the right vibe. There are some takes on the record where everybody except for maybe one person really liked that take, and that one person was like, I wish we could do it again. I didn't really like my performance on it. And in that situation, you just have to be like, well, it's my record, and we're going to take this track, or this take. I'm sorry, but in general, everybody kind of has a feeling right when you get done with it, and you can say, wow, that had the magic.
Yeah.
The magic is the culmination of all those parameters. Everybody's performance on it, the solos, how good they are, the emotional content, are you able to get to some sort of artistic level within the track that you weren't able to get into on a different track? A lot of it is just, does it have that magic?
Yeah. Yeah, and there's no going back and just recording the drums over, right, with a jazz album,
You
or is there
can
some of
do
that?
you can do that sometimes. The way we record it, we record it all in one room. So sometimes when you make a record, everybody's in their own room, everything's isolated. So you can go back and grab something, But we really were trying to capture the sound of like the mid 1950s or late 1950s Blue Note albums. Blue Note was a record label, or is a record label, and those recordings were captured in one room. And so that's the sound we were going for in this recording. So on our particular recording session, you couldn't just go back and get things. You had to get it all in one take.
Yeah, so did you play on any vintage instruments to get that sound, or vintage microphones or anything like
Yeah,
that?
we use vintage microphones. I play a vintage instrument, but yeah, we use vintage microphones.
Yeah, I saw a video of you playing, I think, was it East of the Sun?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it's like a trumpet I've never seen
Oh, it's a
before.
flugelhorn.
Okay, so how is that different than a trumpet?
Flugelhorn it plays very similarly to the trumpet. It has three valves. It's in the key of B flat, but the sound is much darker and broader and not as strident as the trumpet. So generally, trumpet players will play the flugelhorn when you're playing a ballad or you're playing a song that has sort of a softer texture and something that's loud and fast, maybe.
Cool. So talk me through the album. Like, let's go through the tracks and tell me like how you got inspired to play them and the whole thing.
So Elias, he wrote 6 of the tunes. I brought 4 of them, and like I was saying, a lot of his songs were the songs that we were playing on concerts, the previous years before we made the record. And he writes great originals. I mean, like very inventive rhythmically and melodically. So the first track on the album is called One Hand Clap, and it's a contrafact of a song called One Finger Snap. A contrafact is when you write a melody to an existing set of chord changes. So if I wrote a song called sad, let's see, I wrote a song, a melody to the chord changes of Happy Birthday. My song would be a contrafact on Happy Birthday.
Oh, okay.
So he took the chord changes from his song One Finger Snap and he wrote a different melody to it.
Nice.
And kind of had a quirky name, One Finger Snap and One Hand Clap. So that song we've been playing for a while, and we were opening our gigs with it a lot in the past couple of years, and the response that the crowd would get from us starting that tune was always really positive, and the band really likes to play it. It's fast. It's chord changes that we all like to improvise on. So we open up the record with that, and then like I said, it's a mixture of his songs and my songs. I contributed a ballad that I wrote for my wife called For Nicole, and then a Latin-inspired tune called El Marinero, which is based off of a nickname that was given to me by some people that I used to work with.
So when you're making an album, like I remember when I was a kid, like pre-internet, you would buy an album and that was like your thing to do that night. You would just sit there and listen to like the whole experience from the start to the end. And unfortunately, I don't do that anymore, and I think a lot of people don't now with streaming and everything. Do you still think about that experience of the album from start to finish, or is it more or less just individual songs?
Well, I still do listen to albums like from start to finish. So I'm really into vinyl. So I have I don't know, almost 500 records at home. So,
wow.
And I'm constantly
don't
buying
ever
the
move.
record.
I've
had to move them across country. It's
Oh,
not
yeah.
fun.
Yeah.
It's not fun. They're very, very heavy. I do that a lot where I'll put a record on and I'll, put my phone away and I'll listen to it from start to finish. I like doing that. And so I think about that a lot. So, when we were coming up with the track order, and Elias is like this too, we spent 3 weeks getting the order together. And when we were writing the songs, we were keeping that in mind about the tempos, the keys, not doing songs in a row that have the same key, the same tempo. So I think about that a lot. And like the students here at the Butler School, at least the jazz students I interact with, I encourage all of them to listen to these recordings as they were intended, not just off of a Spotify playlist, because that's not how they were intended to be listened to. When people put these records together, they did it with intent to sit down and listen to the side A and then flip it over and listen to side B. So I'm really big into that. I really believe in that process.
That's cool. Is this out on vinyl?
Hmm.
Can you get? Oh, very cool.
Yeah, yeah. The vinyl actually is selling better than the CDs because nobody has a CD player anymore. But lots of people have vinyl. So yeah, I mean, yeah, we've sold quite a bit of vinyl actually. It's been cool.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
And so, like, where would someone buy that?
My website, which is mikesailors.com.
And we'll put in the link below.
Yes. Or Elias's website, which is elijazz.com. Yeah, the vinyl sounds great. I mean, the CD sounds good too. And the streaming, so it's cool. But I'm big into vinyl, so that's my preferred format listening to music. So when people come out with records, I'm always asking like, "Do you have it on vinyl?" I'll buy it on vinyl, even though it's more expensive.
Is it more expensive on vinyl?
Yeah, I mean, CDs like our CDs were selling for 20, the vinyl's 40. So
Okay.
but you get this thing, this is why I love vinyl so much over streaming. I hate streaming. I like having the product,
Yeah.
And so when you buy our record, you get this thing, you open it. It has these beautiful liner notes that were written by Brad Buchholz, who's an unbelievable journalist here in Austin. And you get to read about, the whole album making process, these photos that we had made, they're really nice. The vinyl's cool. It's on this really nice, slick kind of fuchsia color. You get to put it on the record player and hear the pops. I just love the tangibility of vinyl. And streaming is just so cold in that sense,
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't like streaming.
Yeah. I mean, I remember like in high school, I mean, it was part of your identity, like your collection,
Mhm.
your album collection.
Oh, yeah,
And
I
you
know.
would go over to someone's house
It
if
was
they
the
had an
best.
album, and you would just sit there in silence with your
Yeah,
friends.
or even
and
your
just
CD
listen.
book. Remember your
Yeah,
CD book?
yeah.
I mean,
Oh,
I had
yeah.
a CD book in my car that was this
Yeah, yeah.
big.
And it was zip closed.
And it was
Yeah,
coveted.
yeah,
Like
yeah.
you couldn't, if you sat on that thing or stepped on
Oh,
it,
yeah.
you were getting yelled at.
Oh, yeah.
And so, yeah, the students, the kids now, they didn't grow up with it. So that's
Yeah.
not a thing, And so, yeah, I wish there's a return to vinyl that I think is really cool. It's not going to capture everybody, but because streaming's so easy, but I just don't like it. And there's the whole getting paid from it thing that's such a drag,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Which
yeah.
you don't.
Yeah, you don't get paid.
Yeah,
Yeah, I know. You have to be
exactly.
like Taylor Swift to get like a
Even
check.
still,
Yeah.
it's like, so yeah, vinyl's the way of the future.
Yeah. That's so cool. So did you record this like in analog, or did you record it digitally?
It's digital. So when you make a record and you have it mastered, you have to have it mastered for streaming and vinyl.
Okay.
So if you have it mastered for only streaming and then you take those masters and try to make a vinyl with it, it won't sound right.
Okay.
So you have to have it mastered for vinyl. But I have recorded on people's records where they record to analog.
Like still the big like reel to reel.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but no, we recorded digitally.
Very cool. So let's move over to your teaching because you obviously you perform a lot, but you also teach a lot.
Mhm.
And you're the first jazz person we've ever had on
cool.
the podcast.
Mhm.
So a lot of times classical musical people will talk about every single measure is like analyzed in detail.
Mhm.
How do you go about teaching somebody when maybe there's no music at all? Like how do you teach that?
Well, jazz music is an oral art form. So we learn from our heroes. We learn from the people that came before us. And learning how to improvise and be able to express yourself effectively it's kind of like learning a language, And so I don't know if you have kids, but you
I
do.
do, yeah.
You told me you have kids. So I have a 2-year-old, and she's talking up a storm right now. And you know that when they first start to put words together, it doesn't make any sense. It's gibberish, or they're maybe messing the word up. But the more they hear it and the more they practice it, they start to be able to speak more coherently. And learning how to improvise is exactly like that. We do that through transcription, which is, identifying artists that we like, their playing characteristics, learning the solos they play for memory, and then using that information to inform our own artistry. When we transcribe a solo, we don't then go out and play that exact same solo on whatever song they were playing. You you internalize that information, and then it informs your own creativity. So you can eventually, your own musicianship can come out. So I like to tell my students that I'm just the product of all the people that I love and admire, all these great players. So when you're teaching somebody how to be a great improviser, what you're really doing is you're guiding them. You're showing them what to practice. You're showing them what to learn. And you are guiding them on this path to realize their musicianship and their artistry. That's what I think.
Yeah. So we have a lot of like high school students that watch this that are, thinking about coming to college, maybe to Butler. But, so what would you tell someone who plays the trumpet? Maybe they've been playing all through high school and they love jazz, but like they don't even know how to dip their toes into that. It just seems like magic on stage, how they just,
Sure, it is. It really is magic. I mean,
Yeah.
music is magic, not just improvisation, but I mean, it's such a, when you like, if you were to give my trumpet to a stranger on the sidewalk and tell them to make a note on it, and they can't, and then they watch me play something, that's magic to them. They don't
Yeah.
know how that works. I would tell a high school student the first thing you should do is fall as deeply in love with your instrument and music as you can, starting like today. And that means listening to music and having a voracious appetite for music. And not just jazz music. Ideally, you'd be listening to jazz music the most if you're wanting to play that, but just falling in love with music, learning about players, getting these recordings. And, if you're a trumpet player, probably who Kenny Dorham is, or Clifford Brown, these great jazz stars, getting the recordings, listening to it from start to finish, checking out the people who also play on the recording, checking out the albums that they record. Okay, now I'm on Clifford Brown. Okay, he played with this great tenor saxophonist named Harold Land. Let me go check out Harold Land's recordings. And it takes you down this, wormhole of discovery where you can really fall deeply in love with the music. So that'd be my first thing. And then two, identify people that you like they're playing. So maybe you like somebody like Chet Baker or Miles Davis. Start digging into their recordings. Learn some of the songs that they play. Learn maybe an improvisation, like a solo that they played, and try to learn it from memory. And just try to fall deeply in love with music and getting better at your instrument. And the sooner you do that, the better off you'll be when you're, in college somewhere or past college, when you're, starting your career. The thing that I feel like my biggest advantage as an artist is not talent. I don't think I was very talented early on. I just love music so much, and I love the trumpet so much, and I love jazz music. And it's literally the only thing I ever thought about from maybe ninth grade on. And so just developing that deep sense of love for what you do will carry you and guide you into college and beyond.
It's hard for me to hear that you say that you didn't feel like you had that much initial talent. Because
I
like when I
didn't.
watch the videos, you just look like you're just killing it. I can't imagine you in high school weren't just like the superstar.
Well, I mean, I was, I played in all county bands and stuff like that, but I didn't have a lot of like, I was practicing 4 or 5 hours a day in high school.
Oh, wow.
And the instrument didn't really come to me very naturally. So my ability, I definitely was not, I worked for it,
Yeah.
but so I wasn't like sort of naturally gifted, and I couldn't really think about music in a very educated way or a very informed way early on. I meet people now, people in our jazz program here who the way they conceive their instrument and conceive music, I'm so jealous of, because I just didn't have that when I was a kid. So I worked really hard as a young person to be able to play. And in my high school band, I was not the top, but I wasn't the last chair either,
I would hope not. With all those hours of practice, yeah.
Yeah, but it didn't come naturally to me like I feel like it comes to other people. And yeah, it's okay. People have their own paths about that stuff too. Some people it comes really naturally. To me, it didn't really come naturally, so I had to really work hard for it.
And how did you pick the trumpets? And
I picked the trumpet because I thought it'd be the easiest one to play because it only has 3 buttons. So, which is like if you ask any trumpet player this, if you ask 10 trumpet players how they chose the trumpet, 9 of them will say this.
Seriously?
Yeah, because it only has so
Tuba has 3 too, right?
yeah, but it's so big, right? And it's like
I guess, yeah, you gotta carry
trumpets,
it.
you can carry it. It's easy
Yeah,
to
yeah,
carry.
yeah.
Like when I was in middle school, I started a little late. I started in 7th grade in North Carolina. There was a guy who came around and gave an assembly to our middle school, and he was a representative from some music store in town, and he could play all the instruments a little bit.
Mhm.
And so he's playing the clarinet and the flute, and I'm like, well, I don't know if that's really for me. He played the saxophone. I'm like, okay, that's cool, but wow, it's a lot of
It's
buttons.
a
I just
lot of
don't even
buttons,
know if
yeah.
I can really even, how does that even work? It's magic. And then he got to the trumpet, and I was like, that's got to be so easy. It's 3 buttons. How hard can it be? The joke is that it's the hardest instrument to play, I think, because it's these little lips and this little mouthpiece. But that's why I chose the trumpet. I just thought it would be the easiest.
Okay. Trombone always looked the easiest to me because it's
Trombone
although
does
in
look
reality
easy,
it'd be
yeah.
hard because you have to like really
Sure.
dial it in.
Yeah, I mean they're all hard. That's the joke that it's
Yeah.
on all of us, that everything's is difficult. But that's why I chose. I just thought it would be, and it was light. Just so you can throw it over your shoulder, the trumpet.
Yeah. So you started in junior high,
Mhm.
and then how soon after you got that first trumpet did you really fall in love?
When I played in jazz band in high school. Well, I'll tell you, I really fell in love with it actually in 8th grade. I came from a really small school in North Carolina, a very rural area, and I just was very lucky to have very, very, very good at band directors. Both my band directors were amazing musicians and amazing people.
Junior high and then high school?
Mhm.
Yeah.
And so the band director in my middle school, in my junior high, was a gentleman named Kenneth Ruff, who's now the director of bands at A&T University in North Carolina. He's a wonderful flute player, but we had this little dinky concert band. There might have been 13 of us or 14 of us in it, like really small. And the band played at the end of year assembly every year. And we played a song. I can't remember the name of the song, but it was like a pop song. And in the middle of it, I got to have a solo, and I played just the melody of it. And this was a song that was on the radio at the time. I can't remember what it was, but I stood up and I played it from memory, and my entire school just went nuts. And like I had never gotten applause like that or been recognition like that. And I remember sitting down and I was just like, this is what I will do for the rest of my life.
Wow.
I just knew that this is what I was going to do. So I really fell in love with jazz music when I got into high school in my 9th grade year and just playing in the jazz band. And the first song I ever played was Dizzy Gillespie's Night in Tunisia. And I had an improvised solo on it. And I mean, I was awful, but I loved just trying to do it, So yeah, pretty early on.
Yeah. How did your band director in high school approach that first improvised solo?
I don't even remember. He's not so I actually had 2 band directors in high school because I transferred, but my first band director was not a jazz musician. So I don't know. I mean, I actually have my first jazz band concert on a tape, a VHS tape somewhere. My solo is horrible. I mean, it's like atrocious, but
Like what was so bad about it?
I just didn't know. I loved jazz music, but I didn't know anything about it. So I didn't know to listen to recordings. I didn't know who Dizzy Gillespie was. I didn't have anybody really guiding me about, okay, if you want to play this music, you have to listen to it. I just liked doing it. I liked the way that the harmonies sound. I liked the way that the band sounded. I liked the way that the melodies were on the trumpet. Night in Tunisia has this very kind of fun melody to play on trumpet. So I just was having fun with it, but I wasn't digging into anything artistically about improvising. So I just didn't know how to do it, So,
Yeah.
But I loved doing it. So it wasn't until I got out of high school and into college, which is where somebody was like, okay, let's sit at the piano. These are what the chords are. This is how we improvise over this. Okay, now let's check out, Dizzy Gillespie's solo on this, so we can start to get some vocabulary about, and that when you go to improvise on this, you'll be able to have some ideas to play,
Yeah. When you do improvise a solo, how much of it is it like a math equation of the music theory, and how much of it is like you're just the emotion and the feeling of it?
Yeah, well, I don't think about theory when I play. I think about that kind of stuff when I practice. But um, when I'm improvising well, like when I'm really playing good, I'm not thinking about anything except what everybody else is doing. So I'm trying to listen across the band to what the piano player is doing, the chords that he's kind of playing, how he's playing them, the voicings that he's playing. I'm listening to the bass player's quarter note, where they're placing the time. I'm listening to the drummer and how they're interacting with the bass player. And then I'm taking all that and I'm trying to rhythmically, stylistically, aesthetically fit into what they're doing.
Mhm.
And it's all happening in a
Yeah.
split second.
Yeah.
So but so to think about kind of very surface level things of like, oh, I want to play this on this chord, or I want to play this scale on this chord, or these are the chords. That's doesn't really have anything to do with being creative. To be creative, first you got to be informed, about the chords, and you got to know your scales, all that stuff. But I'm listening to what the band's doing, and I want to be able to play with them rather than play at them. You
Hmm.
know, so when you're playing at the rhythm section, it's the music's not being really made. You're just kind of assaulting everybody with your ego and your notes and all this stuff. But when the band's playing together, then you can really make music. So I'm trying to ideally not think about anything when I improvise, except what everyone else is doing around me.
Yeah. How long does it take to get to that point where you can just be in the moment like that?
It depends for everybody because another thing I always tell my students here is that how you conceptualize the music is everything. How you think about creativity, how you think about improvisation, what your creative process is. For me, it took a long time to be able to develop the way I think now because I don't know. I just there's some people that I meet. They're very young and they're so creative, and the way they conceptualize the music is so mature and so individual. So it don't just depends, honestly. I spent I started teaching here 5 years ago. So, and I never intended on being a professor. Um, I was living in New York and was freelancing, and I was totally content doing that. And then I was wearing a lot of different hats musically. I was playing on Broadway. I played in a lot of big bands in New York. I was touring a lot, doing a lot of recording sessions that weren't jazz music. Um, and so I wasn't playing a lot of creative music. And so now here, I play mostly creative music. So my level of thinking of music and improvisation has really matured because I can really dedicate myself to being creative pretty much every time I touch my instrument. Whereas before, I'm sitting down at my Broadway show and I'm thinking I got to execute this,
Yeah.
which is also cool. I like that part of the industry. I like playing a Broadway show, but it's not creative like
Hmm.
improvisation is, or playing a piano sonata is creative. So my musical outlook has really matured the past 5 years since I've been teaching here.
Okay, cool. What would you say to like a high school kid who's about to go into college and they're thinking about either going like jazz trumpets or just trumpet performance? Is there a big difference there or?
Well, sure. I mean, if you're going to come for trumpet performance, you're not going to probably you won't be studying jazz in any sort of intensive way. You're going to be studying classical repertoire. So, here at the Butler School, I must say we have the market really cornered on, what you want to do. We have me here, we have Caleb Hudson who teaches on the classical trumpet side. If you're going to come as a classical trumpet major, you're going to be diving into repertoire essentially. And then what that looks like to you might depend on what you like. So if you want to be an orchestral trumpet player, you're going to be diving into the orchestral excerpts. If you want to be a soloist that plays solo material, you're going to be doing more stuff like that. So there are some people that, and I encourage all of the classical trumpet majors to come play in the jazz bands if they want to, and study with me if they want to study improvisation. And we've had some students here that have been on the classical side that have taken lessons with me if they're having embouchure problems. I'm really adept at helping people through getting through playing injuries, and because I've had my own. So it really just depends on what you love. If you love classical music and you want to be a classical trumpet soloist, or you want to be in an orchestra playing professionally, then you should come study with Caleb. If you want to be a jazz trumpet player who's on the road and touring, going to New York, and making a career as a jazz trumpet player, then you should study with me.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, that's it's pretty cool. So it's cool we have both here.
Mhm.
What did you study jazz, I mean trumpet performance or jazz?
So I got an undergraduate in classical and jazz when I was in
Oh
my
wow.
undergraduate. And then I got a master's in jazz performance at Michigan State. And then I got my doctorate here in the 2000s in composition.
Wow.
Mhm.
Very cool. Very cool. And so what else do you have going on? So I know this album came out.
Mhm.
What else do you have going on?
Well, I mean, I'm always playing concerts. I just did my faculty activity report, and I played 110 concerts last year. So
Wow.
yeah, so
That's like one every 3 days.
I'm playing a
Right?
lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, I play a lot, and so um, yeah, so I'm playing this. I have a concert this Saturday at Monk's Jazz Club with a great trumpet player named Jonathan Saraga, who's in town. We're doing a kind of a 2 trumpet show. So I'm always playing and working a lot. I do a lot of arranging and composing. So right now, the past couple of months, I did some arranging for a great uh, international star, really, on the trombone and singer, a woman named Aubrey Logan, who she has a big band record coming out. I did all the writing for that, and I played on it. I'm a featured soloist.
So she plays trombone and sings.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, she's a great entertainer too. She puts on a
Yeah.
great show. So her record's coming out on November 1st. She also just did a special for PBS with the Jazz Ambassadors, which is the premier jazz orchestra of the Army. So that's coming out in the fall. Where I did a couple of arrangements for her. That's going to come out on PBS sometime. The show is called. It's like Salute to the Soldiers or something like that.
Those military jazz bands are incredible.
Oh yeah, they're great.
The first time I ever heard one, I don't know why I was expecting like kind of, I almost thought it was like just a community band.
Oh, no,
and then I'm like, this is like serious.
They're top notch, and they
Yeah.
rehearse all the time, so they're very tight.
Yeah.
Let's see. I've got. I'm the one of the copyists for the Jazz and Lincoln Center Orchestra in New York, and so that's always sort of a yearly ongoing project where I'm doing engraving and copying for their concert season that spans the entire year. I'm also the editor for the Essentially Ellington Jazz Festival that Jazz and Lincoln Center produces. So I engrave and edit all the music that goes out to hundreds of high school jazz orchestras throughout the year.
What does that mean, engrave?
Engrave, so engraving and copying, that essentially means, so when you sit down in a jazz orchestra or maybe in the orchestra here, and you're reading the music, somebody prepared that music between you reading it and the composer composing it.
Okay.
So a composer will write it into a score. They'll give it to a music copyist, and then the music copyist will take the score and make all the parts.
Okay.
That's called music copying. Engraving is kind of the same thing. You're just taking what's in the score and you're making it so it's easily read and on a stand, essentially.
Okay.
So I've been doing that since 2016 with Jazz and Lincoln Center. So yeah, I got a lot of stuff going on.
Yeah. Cool. Anything else you want to mention?
No, I mean, just, the jazz program here at UT is something that I'm really proud of. I was a student here in the 2000s, and it was a great program then, and it's even better now. We've had, faculty have come and gone. My boss now, Diego Rivera, has been a mentor of mine for many years now. I studied under him at Michigan State, and he is really leading the program here to be something incredibly special. And I think when students come to visit us or when our new students start, they can see just how incredible the program is becoming and will be. And I encourage any jazz trumpet player to come audition for us, come study with us. We're doing something really special here. And great thing about this school, not only just our great educators that we have at the Butler School, not just in the jazz department, but throughout the entire Butler School, is that we're in such a vibrant, artistically creative city like Austin.
Yeah.
There's just so much opportunity here to
Like
play.
on Monday nights. There's
Yeah,
stuff to do. Yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
You can have, and you can play concerts, and people will pay tickets, and they will fill these rooms, and that is something that's very special about Austin. That you can, if you can create something here, and not just sort of like sit in a practice room for 4 years and just try to play by yourself. You can really reach people here, and I think that's just so special about Austin, and the Butler School.
Cool. Well, thank you so much for stopping by.
Yeah, thank you.